Hello friends and welcome home. I'm Jamie James and today we are going to talk about self-watering garden beds. Sound too good to be true? Well, I've done a little research and we're going to do an experiment to see how this might work while it's snowing outside in order to decide if we would like to implement this into our garden this year. So join me as we talk about how a self-watering garden bed works and how it's built today. So the winter solstice is almost upon us, and I don't know if it's my bees influencing me because they somehow know at the winter solstice it's time to start getting ready for spring and the queen starts laying now. Crazy fact. But I feel like I need to think about the garden and what we're going to do this year. It has happened to me ever since I started really gardening for our food around Christmas time. It starts coming around to my mind of what should we be doing and what would be the best way to do all that we do. So a self-watering garden bed is an ingenious idea because what it does is it captures water and has a reservoir for each bed individually to then water the plants from below, saving the plants from disease or root rot or anything else that you might imagine, leaf damage or fruit damage because of splash up of water. This reduces that. In addition, here in the Northwest, we get so much rain that we would actually rarely have to, if ever, water our plants. Maybe for 1 month in August, we would actually have to go out and water this self-watering garden bed because it has a reservoir within itself that the plants are able to then access and soak up that water. It also helps from stressing out our plants. So if you think about a watering cycle, often we either water heavily one day and not enough another, or our watering can be inconsistent. At least that's me. Maybe you have perfected your watering, but I can be very inconsistent in how much water I'm putting down and how often I'm watering. So this prevents that because it's always available. 2 inches below the soil level, you should find that the soil is nice and moist because the water is wicking up from the bottom. So to me, this sounds like an excellent way to use our natural resources. I'm not having to drag hose all over the property, but we can just take and capture what is coming down from the sky to then continually provide our plants with what they need water-wise. So here's how it works. I am going to build this with an aquarium. Normally, obviously, you wouldn't be putting glass out into your garden, but for today's experiment, we will be able to take a look and see what we're going to do and how it works easier with this glass that you can see through. So for a self-watering garden bed, you would have a box, a raised bed that would be like a 4x8. You want it 24 inches, 2 feet tall. So that 12 inches is the standard for rocks that I've heard or read. And 12 inches would then be for your soil. What you will need also is you will need something to water or get the hose down inside in case it is a super drought-like conditions or a long period of time without rain. And so I'm using this for our experiment today, just like a funnel. However, out in the garden bed, you would use a corrugated sewage pipe, 3 to 4 inches, something that you can fit the hose down in, but a corrugated sewer pipe actually has holes in it also, allowing the water to release. And we'll talk about how that works as well. And then you would want in a standard bed that is not glass, that you can't, where you can't see the level, you would want to have some kind of drain pipe. So PVC pipe would work excellent, about 1.5 inches or 2 inches, something that you can stick in and goes into the bed and then drains off the top of the rocks and allows the excess water just to escape rather than saturating your soil and just causing a slushy, nasty mess in those winter or spring months. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to fill this up with rock. I'm going to fill it with river rock. You do not want to use regular standard gravel because in your garden bed or raised bed, you would want to line that with a thick plastic, maybe a 6 to 8 mil plastic, you will want to line that and then staple it off to the top. That is your reservoir, like a bathtub, that holds that water in place where you want it. It also protects the garden from, if you decided to use treated wood, it wouldn't be seeping into your soil. It allows the soil to be contained, and you're not going to get any weeds coming up from under in any sort of way if you have major issues like I do with those vine plants that won't leave me. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some rock layer down, and then I will stick this in. You can either, in your garden bed, fill the rocks first and create a little valley that, like by moving the rocks out, that you then lay down your corrugated pipe. But you do want it kind of lower, like you want it within the rocks so that it's not causing any issue with your soil and you're not clogging up any of those holes in the corrugated pipe in any way. So it would come down into the bottom where the hose would then feed in. So mine will go like this, and I will just water it from the top. So I will go ahead and start filling that in.
Let's discuss some of the disadvantages that you can find about wicking or self-watering beds. One is that there are plants that require a wet-dry cycle where the soil needs to dry out completely before rewatering in order to grow. These plants obviously would not thrive in this environment where water is constantly being provided. Another disadvantage is that you can have fertilizer build up because the fertilizer does not have the ability to soak into the lower levels of soil below your amended bed. Another disadvantage is that the lowest parts of the dirt will be more moist, and so larger rooted plants might have wet feet or be too much water around their root system. So that is something to be aware of. And finally, obviously, the cost. It can cost a lot more to set up these beds than a standard raised bed.
So now I filled the rocks halfway up. I will lay down some landscape fabric that I cut out the size of this thing, and I'm just going to weigh it down with some extra rocks so that it doesn't flop around when I'm trying to use the dirt inside. And I'll probably cut around my little tube here as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Just gonna put some rocks right around this mouth of this so that way I don't lose too much soil down in there. I'm sure I will lose some, but I might actually pull this back, and I'm gonna cut an extra strip right there because I really do not want all my dirt falling down into that hole. You can buy this landscape fabric at many stores. You could buy it at a big box store that's local to you, or any kind of landscape supply company would have it. That's where we purchased ours. So I think that the most cost-effective way is to go through a landscape supply or order online, depending on where you're located. Okay. I don't know if this is quite necessary to line this whole thing, but just going to kind of weigh it down a smidge. Now for this first time, because I'm going to be planting some seeds, I'm going to go ahead and water from the top some, but we'll go ahead and fill some of it up through the pipe when I'm done here so that you can see how that process would work before I water the soil and put my seeds in. Okay, so now I will add my compost. Whatever you want to use. I typically use the Gardenary method, which is 3 parts 1 part compost of some kind, 1 part sand, and 1 part of like a manure. I make obviously most of those things on our own here, and then I buy compost to add stuff with it. But my husband just bought me a mixed that was already all of those things. Unfortunately, it's not organic because there's nothing local to us organic at this time of year, but we'll make do with what we have.
Let's discuss now the advantages of a self-watering garden bed. The first one is the most important, that you have continual water going to your plants even if you go on vacation or are too busy. The next advantage is that if you plant around root systems that might draw water from your plants, especially things like eucalyptus or juniper, that would not happen in this system. And I don't have any brambles growing up through my garden bed in this way. Also, if you have a basement that could get flooded, you can plant near your home without that problem.
All right, so we have the soil in, and now we're gonna go ahead and pour water into our funnel to see what happens with our rocks down below. So as you can see, the water is filling in between all of the gaps in the rock. And that is creating a hold for our water without allowing the soil to fall down all into there. Obviously, I had a hole right here that the soil began to fall. I'm hoping that's not too big of a deal. But right around the corrugated pipe, we will definitely need to make sure that is well sealed at that time. So this right here is why you want to have the drain pipe in a real box right here, because you will want to be able to fill up all the way up to the soil line so that it can actually wick up. If it doesn't have that much filled, then it will not have an opportunity to wick. It will hang out below the line of good soil. So I'm planting things that are intentionally small rooted and more cold tolerant, just in case. I have had my little temperature gauge in here for about 4 days, and morning and night and during the day, it has never gotten below 62. So these will do fine in here. I think I obviously wouldn't do tomatoes or something of that nature inside right now, but we can have some lettuce, right? All right, and there you have it. We have our own self-watering garden box to see how this goes. So we will give you an update and we'll see how my basil does and if these little plants grow. And hopefully this would be a great application in our garden. So let me know below, what are your thoughts about the self-watering system? And if you have any advice, I would love to hear that as well. and thoughts as I'm going through this process of trying to decide how we are going to build our garden this year. I'd love to hear from you, and we will see you again next time. Bye.